Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Q&A with Dr. K. Welcome, Dr. Klaper.
Hi there, Annie. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so let's get started with the questions. All right, today our viewer question is they're wondering what are some of the counterpoints, some of the main arguments that you run into that are against veganism and kind of how you handle those.
Well, one of the granddaddies of all the arguments, of course, is the paleo diet that our human ancestors evolved eating flesh of, since time began. And like every Neanderthal had a mastodon in the freezer and spent all day eating mammoth meat because I'm a caveman. That's what I do. Of course, the reality is quite different, but it takes some reasoning to understand why that's pretty much a myth. So let me show you some pictures that might make the situation clearer here. Here is, in fact, let me see if I can turn this nuts. I could even, sorry about that, but slide only. Okay, great. All right, so you can edit that out. Okay, great. Okay. All right, so we'll pick up here. So here's this fella, the manifestation of the paleo philosophy, saying, listen, don't knock this diet, doc. I tried it. I just ate meat and vegetables, and man, it worked for me. Boy, I lost weight. I trimmed down. My blood sugar numbers got better. I felt good. Don't tell me this paleo diet doesn't work. And for this fella, it absolutely did. So we need to discuss what's going on here. So here's the way I look at this phenomenon. Well, first of all, to put things in a bit of modern day perspective, the paleo philosophy says we should be eating what our caveman ancestors did. And of course, in this myth, there was just a never ending supply of mammoth meat and buffalo meat around, not mentioning that it would, since there was no refrigeration, it would all rot within days there. But there was an infinite supply of animal flesh, and there were a few blades of grass growing out of the mouth of the cave. So meat and vegetables, that's what got our carnivorous ancestors through those dark eras of the paleo times. But I just want to point out that, listen, let's get flesh eating into perspective. Most people eating the Western diet do eat animal flesh a lot, several times a day. Bacon and eggs for breakfast, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken for dinner. They're eating animal flesh every 4 hours. I just want to point out, if we're talking about what is natural, that not even mountain lions eat animal flesh 3 times a day. Once a week, if they can get it, the truth of it is. And the official carnivores, the tigers in the rainforest, they don't eat flesh 3 times a day. Again, they fast on most days. They eat animal flesh just rarely because it's so difficult to get. And no advanced primate eats animal flesh at all. I'm sure the occasional insect on the leaves that the gorilla is scooping in his mouth probably goes in, but they certainly don't eat animal flesh 3 times a day. They don't feed their young animal flesh 3 times a day. Let's get things into a reasonable perspective, and yet here we are. We've given ourselves permission to become carnivorous apes. But really, it is not the natural diet of human beings. We've got basically the same digestive system that our gorilla and bonobo cousins have, and they spend all day shoveling in leaves and fruit up in their green Rwanda homes there. And we have basically the same digestive system. And when we eat a plant-based diet, our digestive system certainly like it. But speaking of those arguments, inevitably, then people will point to their canine teeth and they say, aha, canine teeth. Why were we given canine teeth if we weren't supposed to be eating flesh? Hey, doc, see, that gives me permission to eat my big T-bone steak. To which I say, wait a minute. Yes, they are called canine teeth. But could you imagine being out in the prairies and jumping on the back of a buffalo and opening your mouth and trying to take a big bite out of its backside? What would you find? You're finding that your mouth is very small and your teeth are very short. You couldn't bite through that animal's hide, let alone its muscle. they're called canine teeth, but they're not true canines. You want to see true canines? Have your house cat open its mouth and have a look. Now, there's a set of true canines. And if you go into the bathroom and open your mouth in front of the mirror, and if your canines look like this, absolutely. You can go to the nearest butcher shop, buy a big porterhouse steak, walk outside, sit down on the curb, strip off the paper, and have at it, man. Don't even bother to cook it if you got canine teeth that look like this. But we don't. When you look at a dental pantomograph of all our teeth, you see that we have no big, we've got no big canines hanging down from our upper jaw. We don't have big fangs sticking out from our lower jaw. So that begs the question. So then what are these canines for? We've got a small mouth. We got flat grinding molar teeth in the back. We got rotary jaw joints that let us chew in a circular motion. What is this dentition and oral mechanics set up to actually chew on? Well, what we were really made to eat and digest are the foods that actually brought in most of the calories into the Paleolithic camp. It was not a never-ending supply of mammoth meat. Most of the calories brought into the ancient Paleo camps were gathered by the women who spent all day foraging and digging up starchy roots and tubers and gathering edible grasses and wild berries and nuts. This is the food that got our ancient Paleolithic ancestors through those dark calorie lean times. And indeed, our small mouth and flat grinding molar teeth are great for grinding up the berries and the grasses. And these canines are great as today for biting into an apple or a carrot. Those canines work great for that. And that's the reality of it. Back then, as anthropologist Nathaniel Dominy from Dartmouth reminds us, we were starchivores back then. We are starchivores today. It's the starchy vegetables that really provided the calories that got us through. And that's what our dentition is really about. And if you need any further proof, we just need to look at the massive stools these people were passing. Yes, we have their stools. They become fossilized, just like their bones have. And when you look at the fossilized, the fecaliths from our Paleolithic ancestors, you see they were massive. They were huge, signifying these people were eating huge amounts of fiber every day. There's no fiber in mammoth meat. There's no fiber in rabbit meat, in any flesh foods. But when you see these huge coproliths, you realize that it was a plant-based diet that really fueled our Paleolithic ancestors. Now, what about that weight loss? Well, it comes from the fact that the paleo folks advocate a few things I agree with. They say, listen, no caveman ever milked a dairy cow, so they're down on dairy products. Yay, paleo, they're right. No caveman ever crushed the fat out of olives and poured liquid olive fat on their vegetables, so they're down on oils. Yay, paleo, they're right. And no caveman ever ground wheat into flour to make vegan donuts, so they're down on flour products. And you pull the dairy and the oil and the flour products out of your diet, you're going to trim down. And the weight loss alone, man, will make your lipids better, make your blood sugar better, unstick your insulin receptors. So in this respect, the paleo diet has some beneficial attributes, but it's not from all the animal flesh that people use as an excuse to be shoving all this meat into their mouths there. That is not a healthy diet for humans. And that gets us down to the last point, or next to last point. The people who are advocating this diet, oh, that steak tastes good in your mouth. You can eat all the steak you want, they say. But really, you are packing your intestinal tract full of some very toxic molecules. I won't spend time going through them, but the oxidized cholesterol from cooking the animal muscle, the reactive aldehydes that damage genes, new 5-GC in animal flesh sets off inflammation, endotoxin from slaughterhouse bacteria makes your gut leaky, TMAO drives cholesterol into your artery walls, for setting up for heart attacks and strokes. Cooking animal muscle produces carcinogenic chemicals that cause cancer, the colon, the stomach. If you eat meat, your liver puts out IGF-1 that promotes cancer growth throughout the body. The heme iron that makes red meat red increases the risk of strokes and cancers. And today's meat is produced with by feeding the animals in the feedlot grain sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, heavy metals in the drinking water. All this accumulates in the animal flesh. This is what the paleo diet is having these people ingest on a regular basis. And in my humble physician's viewpoint, this is a recipe for disaster. These folks are setting themselves up for an epidemic of colon cancer from the carcinogens, from the heart attacks and strokes, from the cholesterol and TMAO, from the autoimmune disease, from the leaky gut, from the diabetes, from all the high-fat diet that they're eating. The meat spawns microbes in their gut that burrow into the gut wall and set them up for colitis and Crohn's disease. And all these free radicals from the cooked meat damage the arteries in the brain. These opens the door to dementia. These folks are setting themselves up for an epidemic of lethal degenerative diseases. I don't care how good that steak may taste. It is not the proper diet for Homo sapiens, and we're going to pay the price with these dreadful diseases. And the biggest reason of all, of course, the folks who are advocating everybody should be eating paleo. I say, listen, there's soon going to be 9 billion people on this planet. Are you seriously advocating a flesh-based diet for 9 billion people 3 times a day? If you haven't heard, the earth is getting hotter because raising and slaughtering 80 billion animals every year is driving every major environmental destructive force we're facing. And it doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is if we don't have a livable planet to exist on. And large-scale animal agriculture is driving the deforestation, the soil erosion, water pollution, water depletion, pesticide, herbicide use, species extinction. And it's driving the methane and carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide being put into the air. To advocate everybody should be eating paleo is a very elitist and short-sighted advocacy position. And that's why these poor bears are on this melting iceberg. And well, let's just eat fish. We are clear-cutting the ocean. We're strip mining the ocean for flesh-based diet. We've used fishing up. It's time to let the oceans heal. We've used meat eating up. I urge you, educate yourself, get Dr. Richard Oppenlander's book, Comfortably Unaware. Go to his website, see his videos there, but read his book and educate yourself. If you just want a quick read in an hour, you can read Glenn Mercer's excellent little book, Food is Climate. He will educate you. John Robbins in Diet for America, his new edition, will educate you. So finally, you don't have to be a bull, to eat a bull, to be as strong as one. And if you have any question, I'm vegan, I'm going to be skinny and weak, just do a search on vegan bodybuilders and see who shows up on your screen when you hit images. None of these folks look protein deficient to me. And see a film called The Game Changers if you want a little more confidence that a plant-based diet really is what we ought to be eating. So for our health and for our futures, we need to change. It's time to leave caveman thinking behind. We need to evolve our diets as individuals and as a species to a whole food plant-based diet. It'll save our own lives, it will save the animals, it will save the planet, and it will save all of our futures. So that's what I would say to the folks who advocate a challenging argument in favor of paleo diets. Not today, not in the future. Take care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Klaper. That was a lot of information and super helpful. And the slides were helpful. That was great. So thank you so much. I hope that was really helpful to the viewers out there watching today. And we will see you guys next time.
Take care. Bye-bye. Eat plants.
Eat plants.